Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. As today is Independence Day in India, can you talk about independence from a spiritual perspective? Well, there's so many ways to go about independence from a spiritual perspective, but the core message is spirituality is 100% about freedom. All of that which we are looking for on a spiritual path is freedom. Freedom from desires, freedom from grudges, freedom from our egos, freedom from anger, freedom from our emotions that turn us into a slave. Not freedom from the presence of emotions, but freedom from emotions as the master. I was angry, therefore I hit. Therefore I yelled. I was bored. I was upset. Therefore I drown my sorrows in alcohol or in drugs or in promiscuity or in gambling or whatever I may do. So freedom from being the slave to every chemical and electrical pattern of energy in my brain. Freedom from being the slave to the subconscious and unconscious patterns that are in me, from my family, from my experience, from the culture, the society, the world that I come in. Spirituality is 100% about freedom. The joy, the peace, the bliss, the ecstasy, the moksha, the liberation, whatever term we use, the enlightenment, it's all synonymous with freedom. Joy, bliss, is freedom from depression, freedom from anxiety, freedom from yearning for possessions to fill me, yearning from titles to fill me, from relationships to fill me. If I really am experiencing joy and bliss, and it's spiritual, and it lasts, and it's deep, it can only come from freedom. It's not going to come from the attainment of, oh, I really wanted, a new blender. I got a new blender, so I'm really happy. I really wanted a new job. I got a new job, so I'm happy. I wanted a new marriage. I wanted a vacation. Whatever I wanted, I got it. I'm happy. Well, as we all know, that's very, 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 very fleeting. Blender breaks. Job isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. Relationship isn't nearly as easy as I thought it was going to be. The fireworks are no longer there. The vacation is over. It was nice while it lasted. Now it's over. But if the joy and the bliss are going to last, they actually come from a freedom of that. And here's a very interesting, very deep, very interesting teaching that is really worth holding on to. It may take a moment to fully sink in, but hold on to this as you move through your life, which is the joy that comes in the fulfillment of a desire. So I desire pizza, I desire ice cream, I desire to lose 10 pounds, I desire a nicer house. Whatever level my desire may be, I desire it. I then attain it. I feel happy. But the teaching is the joy that comes in the attainment of a desire is actually not due to the object that I've gotten itself, but due to the fact that temporarily I am free of that desire. So it's actually the freedom from the desire that has brought me joy rather than the object. So think about it in a very simplistic way. I desire a chocolate ice cream cone. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, God, I really, really could use a chocolate ice cream cone. I go out. I finally get a chocolate ice cream. I start to eat it. We know from the science, literally the neurology of sensation and perception, that my taste buds are only actually reacting to the niceness of that chocolate ice cream for the first bite or two. Literally, they respond only to newness. All of the senses do. I won't go into all of that now, but we know scientifically that joy of the taste is there in the first bite. And with every bite after, it actually becomes significantly less. Nonetheless, the joy that I feel at eating the whole chocolate ice cream cone, or maybe having a second or a third, comes not from the ice cream itself. Comes from the fact that in that moment, I'm no longer desiring chocolate ice cream. So it isn't the ice cream itself that has brought joy. It's the fact that for the moments that I'm enjoying it, and for a short while thereafter until I desire now pizza or French fries or whatever now I want, I no longer have that desire. So it's actually the freedom from desire that brings us the joy. But we mistake it and we think, oh, that ice cream brought me so much joy. Oh, that pizza brought me so much joy. Oh, that shopping trip, whatever it was that we've used. So you have to be very, very subtle and very deep to actually notice the distinction between the joy that is actually in response to what I have and the joy that is in response to finally getting what I wanted and therefore being free from wanting it. So freedom lies at the heart of joy, of course of peace. We know that on every level. Freedom from violence, freedom from conflict, freedom from anxiety, freedom from stress. On a personal level, on an interpersonal level, on a national level, on a race and religion level, on an international level, on every level. The peace that we experience comes when there isn't conflict, when there isn't competition, when there isn't fear, when there isn't stress or anxiety. But from a spiritual perspective, freedom goes even deeper. It's freedom from that which chains me. The ego, the expectations, the attachments. All of this stuff that we kind of lump together and we call it Maya. We lump it together and we call it samsara. Whatever word we're using in that context. The world of illusion, the cycle. These are all part of that. They're also all part of a very, very temporary, constantly changing physical body and identity. And so when I identify as the body, when I identify as my career, when I identify as my role, when I identify as my relationships, every aspect that happens in that is going to create problems for me. If I am my body, feels good, looks good, I'm happy. Doesn't feel good, doesn't look good, I'm not happy. If I identify as my job, if I identify as my relationships, if I identify as my bank account, as my relationships are in great shape, people are appreciating me, people are loving me, people are doing what I tell them to do, what I want them to do. My boss is appreciating me, my colleagues are appreciating me, my projects and proposals are successful. Stock market is up. And all of those things, so I'm great. But the minute that those things fall, the minute that people around me no longer do what I want them to do, maybe they don't even stay with me. The minute that my job is no longer feeling satisfying, fulfilling, gratifying, stock market falls, whatever it may be. But I fall with it because I've hooked myself into that as who I am. And so the real spiritual freedom is a freedom from all of that. And this is why all of the rishis and the sages and the saints and the spiritual teachers emphasize over and over and over again. Realize you are the soul, not the body. Realize you're the spirit, not the body. The body is degenerating. It's the only thing we know is true. Matter degenerates. Yeah, sure, we can eat well, we can exercise, we can take care of ourselves, we can keep it held together a little bit longer, slightly more effectively. But it's a matter of a few extra years, a few extra pounds, a little bit of extra muscle, whatever it may be. But no matter what you do, that body is degenerating. No matter what you do, your relationships will end. Whether they end because you die, or they end because the person you're in a relationship dies. Or because you've left them or they've left you. One or the other, every relationship you are in will end. Your career will end. Whether it's because you get fired, whether you retire, or whether you die. This is just the stuff that life is made of. All of that is falling through our hands. We're literally dying every day. We are losing our relationships and our jobs every day. Every day we wake up is another day we're closer to death, closer to losing our jobs, closer to losing our relationships, closer to losing our youth and beauty and whatever it may be, intelligence. That's how nature works. Matter degenerates. And so when we identify as that matter, we are stuck. Because then we spend our entire lives trying to prevent the inevitable. This is where, I just came back from America last week, where I had been for several weeks. And wherever you go there, especially in the big cities, New York, LA, San Francisco, as you drive through the streets, all the store windows, billboards, everything is being sold these days by anti-aging claims. Literally. This place, anti-aging, this food, anti-aging, this cream, anti-aging, this. Anti-aging is an oxymoron. You cannot anti-age. You cannot anti-age. Maybe someday, at some point, science is going to figure it out. I seriously doubt it. I think they'll figure a lot of things out. I don't think they will figure out how to keep us from aging. the scriptures, all of the wisdom traditions of the world emphasize that which is born has to die, right? So all of this is to bring us back to the awareness that if I really want freedom, real freedom in my life, it can only come by no longer identifying by that which isn't in my hands. My body degenerating is not in my hands. What my boss thinks of my report is not in my hands. What people who are in relationships with me, how they react to me, not in my hands. What they do with their lives, not in my hands. A spiritual path brings us real freedom. Freedom from all of the depression, the anxiety, the fear. Doesn't mean we don't care. In fact, in an interesting paradox, the most enlightened spiritual masters are the ones who are the most deeply connected. Not being hooked into that doesn't keep them disconnected. You look at Puja Swamiji, you look at the other enlightened saints, their lives are spent for others. Their lives are compassion in action, prayer in action, meditation in action. Awareness that it's all degenerating. Awareness that it's not in my control. Awareness that it's not in my hands does not stop them from serving. Rather, it makes them serve even more because they're able to do it without the ego attachment of it has to be my way. Has to be my name, has to be this, has to be that. They're able literally to be clear vehicles of the divine flow of the will of the universe and to serve in that way. So it doesn't mean that we don't act, but the freedom is freedom to know who you really are, which isn't your history. It's not your body. It's not your bank account. It's not your job. It's not your relationships. It's not the patterns of chemical and electrical activity in your brain. Who you are is consciousness. And yeah, we forget on an hourly basis, at least. But then you keep remembering. You keep remembering. And that's what the spiritual practice is oh wait, I lost myself. Oh wait, I over-identified. And the way that you know that, the thing that precipitates the oh wait, suffering. I'm stressed. I'm depressed. I'm upset. You can be sure that prior to any of those things I was identified. I was over-identified with something that was not in my control. So the moment that we find ourselves depressed, anxious, worried, miserable, not in peace, not in joy, it's because we over-identified and we weren't free. So that's the interaction of spirituality and freedom. And of course, on a very specific level, quickly, since today we're talking about India's independence. On a personal level, my prayer for India, since not all, but the overwhelming majority of people sitting here are Indian tonight, my prayer for India in her real independence and freedom is that 72 years ago, India got independent from the colonizers. And yet, there is still such a mentality in so many people, in so many places, about somehow things that are foreign, things that are white, being somehow better than things that are Indian, things that are brown. And it makes me miserable. But it's such a common aspect of Indian life. I see tragically so many people. You know, when you ride on the trains, they give you free newspapers. Here, we get the Hindi papers. My Hindi reading is not very good. But on the trains, you get Times of India, you get Hindustan Times, you get all of the English papers. And so if I'm on the train, I love reading the papers. And one of the things that I always love to read is the matrimonial section. And everybody laughs because here I am, a sannyasi, reading the matrimonials. And I think, you know, people who don't know me must think, well, you know, she's clearly foreign. Maybe she doesn't understand some part of this. But I do understand it. And I'm not reading the matrimonials for me, of course. I'm reading them because I'm waiting for the time. I've been in India 22 years. And I'm waiting for the time to read a matrimonial that does not say fair-skinned beauty. And I have yet to find one. And it's tragic because India is a country, and especially certain parts like South India, are full of dark-skinned, exotic beauties. In America, where I come from, we call that exotic. People buy cream to put on their skin and lie in the sun with oil on their bodies to look dark, to look exotic. But instead of saying dark-skinned exotic beauty, dark-skinned desi beauty, what you see is fair-skinned beauty. And the problem with that, on a personal level, for the girl whose ad that is she looks in the mirror. She knows she's not fair-skinned. And what the message she's getting from the time she's 20, 21, 22, however old she may be, is I have to lie about myself in order to be worthy. She knows that at some point the groom's family's going to meet her. They're going to discover she's not fair-skinned. And how that girl must dread that day. It's horrendous. And so if we could stop somehow carrying on genetically, energetically, because the people buying fairness creams today are not people who were living under British rule. I guarantee it. It's not your 75, 80, 85-year-old crowd of people who are flooding the pharmacies to buy fairness creams. The people who are buying them are people who have always been free in India, who don't know colonial rule, but somehow who have internalized that which so calculatively, so brilliantly, so purposely was inculcated into the people of India at that time. And okay, at that time there may not have been a choice. We may not have had control over our education systems, over the books, over the media. But we have since independence. What's the excuse now? Why are we perpetuating this myth that somehow things that come from abroad? It's absurd. People will say things like, oh, you're coming from America, would you bring me a digital camera? It's just an example. But, well, the camera is being made in Tokyo. It is being shipped from Tokyo to LA. If I purchase that camera in LA, or in New York, or Paris, or London, or anywhere abroad, and I bring it back to India, there is a sense of much more inherent value. Oh, ये तो अमेरिका से आई है, ये तो विदेश वाली है, वो तो सभी विदेश वाली है, टोक्यो में बनी हुई है. But if it flies from Tokyo to Delhi, or Tokyo to Mumbai, and you buy it in Delhi or Mumbai, same camera, why is it of less value? And it's the mindset. And so I realize that being someone who comes from abroad, I don't necessarily have the right to tell Indians what their independence should be, but having lived here for 22 years, I hope gives me at least a little bit of right, because the tragedy that I see in this nation of people who should be so filled with pride, overflowing with pride to be Indian. This is a place, look around you, look at all the non-Indians just in this room who have come from their countries to sit here, to be in India, to be in Rishikesh, to come to Arti, to come to Satsang. Because this culture, this country, this land has a magic. And my prayer for India is that in her independence, now so many years after being free from the colonizers, that she gets free from the mentality of being colonized and really fully embraces that freedom and that pride.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Alaya, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. So I told a story yesterday of a beggar who was sitting under a tree for his whole life begging. And when he died, they found that there was a treasure chest actually buried just 6 inches beneath where he sat, and how he had spent his whole life begging. And actually there was treasure right below him. And I had spoken about how that really is how so many of us live. That we're looking outside for what we think we need. We're looking outside for our happiness. Oh, if just that person would like me, if just that person would eat lunch with me, if just I could get a raise, if just I could have, a new mobile phone, if just I could have a nice car, if just I could lose 10 pounds, then I'd be happy. That we're always looking outside for happiness, for joy, for peace as our treasure. But actually inside, yeah, exactly, but actually that treasure chest is inside us. And so his question was, he said, well, so why does God not give the gyan, the wisdom of knowing where the treasure chest is? The wisdom is there. We come onto this earth with a full package. A package of our karma from past births. But we also come with buddhi, that obviously has to be nurtured, our intelligence, our intellect. We come with what we call sanskaras, which are impressions upon us. Again, those from past births, but we get more and more sanskaras as we move through this birth. But we also come with something called free will. And that free will leads us into ignorance. The ignorance is an ignorance of identifying as the body. So if I go around and I say to you, who are you? You're going to give me your names, you're going to give me your ages, you'll tell me what grade in school you're studying in or what your job is, and you'll give relationships with other people, you'll give so much of that. But that's not actually who you are. That's the false identification with the body. And when we've falsely identified with the body, that's when I begin to suffer. And then I use my free will to ease my suffering in the way that I think it will ease it, but it's all out of ignorance. So if I've identified as the body, and I say, oh my God, I'm way too dark-skinned, or I'm way too poor, or I'm way too short, or I'm way too fat, or I'm way too whatever I may be. I'm going to use my energy to change that. And so whether it's about being jealous of people who I look at, who have what I want, whether it's running around trying to buy the things that are going to make me feel the way that I think I should feel, it's going to lead toward greed. It's going to lead toward grabbing. It's going to lead toward pushing things away. I don't like this. I don't want this. This makes me angry. This makes me sad. This makes me depressed. That is gross. I'm pushing things away. Or I'm grabbing things. Well, that leads to suffering. But that's my own free will that has done that. And this is why it's so important to use our free will for things that increase our buddhi, increase our intellect, increase our intelligence, that take us closer to knowing the truth. This is why we come to satsang. This is why we go and sit at the feet of the saints, the gurus. This is why we meditate. This is why we read spiritual literature. Because it fills us with truth. It brings us back into the presence of truth, away from the falsehood, the ignorance of the body. Because when I know I am the soul, then somebody sent me a mean text message. It's not going to ruin my day. Someone was rude to me. It's not going to ruin my day. I'm going to be able to be loving back to them. But if I'm falsely identified as the body, then it goes like this. Oh my God, they sent me this message. Who the hell do they think they are? How dare they? I have been so good to them. I've done everything for them. I always help them. I'm always nice to them. How dare they? How dare they be mean to me? How dare they talk badly behind my back? Right? This is the stuff that upsets us. Somebody tells us, so-and-so was talking nonsense about you. So-and-so said this. So-and-so said that. And suddenly, no matter how beautiful our day may have been going, suddenly we're furious. Or we're deeply hurt. Same emotion, just either directed inward or directed outward. But if instead in that moment I'm able to drop into the truth of who I am. A few things happen. Number one, I'm not hurt because I understand. I'm not this body that needed that person's approval in order to be okay, in order to be enough, in order to be worthy. And something else happens, which is my vision expands. And so I'm able to understand, A, that the person telling me may be lying, that it may not necessarily be true, that the person telling me may be telling me for their own reason, or that the person who hurt me, they didn't mean to. And I'm able to experience love and compassion for them because I'm able to tap into the source of love within me rather than suddenly just turning on my, hatred manufacturing plant. That's usually what we do, right? Something negative happens and it's like, all right, all lights on in the hatred plant. All lights on in the anger plant. But the problem with that is, long before it hurts somebody else, it hurts me. There's a beautiful saying that being angry at someone or hating someone is like drinking poison and expecting that someone else is going to die. Right? We get angry. We become furious. I'll show them, I'll teach them. I'm going to make them feel really bad. But I'm the one living in the anger manufacturing plant, in that pollution. That's what's around me. So I have to use my free will to cultivate enough buddhi, enough intellect, to understand in that moment I have a choice. It's not automatic stimulus response like I'm Pavlov's dogs. It's a choice. Somebody could say, God, that person was talking nonsense about you. And I actually have a choice of how to respond. I don't have to get angry. I don't have to be furious and upset. There's so many other alternatives. And a great practice on a spiritual path is to ask yourself all the time, whenever you're about to react, whenever you're about to get super angry, feel super hurt, or say something mean, or do something, ask yourself one simple question. Is there an alternative? And I'll give you a hint. There's always an alternative. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to take the alternative, but we're so used to our own patterns. Somebody does something, I get angry, I hit them. Or I get angry and I hurt myself. Well, the next time that happens, just ask yourself, is there an alternative? Do I have an option here? Instead of feeling hurt, instead of turning on my hurt manufacturing plant, can I turn on my love manufacturing plant? It's up to me. I'm the boss, I'm the caretaker, I'm the one who switches the lights on and off. It's all up to me. But we have to use our power of discrimination there. This is why we meditate on our third eye. The third eye, the Agya Chakra, is the energy center of the power of discrimination that enables us to see truth from falsehood, that enables us to see, actually they're divine. What they said was not so divine. What they did was not so divine. But who they are is divine. How I'm feeling is not divine, but who I am is divine. And can the divine in me connect with the divine in them. But that takes buddhi, intellect. That takes a power of discrimination. It takes an open third eye. It takes a connection to the source of love within me. So we have to use our free will for that. The gyan is there. Puja Swamiji always says the light is shining. But if we're sitting in a dark room with the curtains closed, that's not the sun's fault. You can't blame the sun for that. The sun is shining. But if we're choosing to stay inside behind the curtains, that's our choice. The gyan is there. The wisdom is there. The truth is there. But if we are staying under the veil of Maya, under the veil of our likes and our dislikes, under the veil of our emotions, the veil of our ego, the veil of our attachments, the veil of our expectations, if we're staying under the veil of that, that's our choice. Freedom is there. Light is there. Moksha is there. Truth is there. But if we want to stay behind the curtain, it's up to us. So we have to use that free will.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. The only thing you have to let go of to live a spiritual path in marriage is the ego that says, I need it to be how I want it, the way I want it, and when I want it. That's all you have to let go of. The spiritual path, yes, a path of sannyas is a path of actual renunciation, a path of celibacy, a path of non-ownership. But there's an infinite number of stories in the scriptures of non-sannyasis. In fact, the vast majority of stories are non-sannyasis. The vast majority of the rishis, the sages, are married people. To show us, here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like as a householder. It's a very, very important phase of life. But you can still be very spiritual. What you have to realize is that what you're doing, even in the marriage, you're still doing it for your spiritual growth. But your spiritual growth is coming through the marriage. So the seva you're doing, instead of in an ashram someplace, is seva for your children, for your spouse, for your in-laws. If you have extra time, can help out in an ashram also. But if you don't have extra time, that's your seva. But the difference between work and seva is simply how I think about it. When it's drudgery, when it's what I have to do, or when it's for myself, this identity, my lowercase s self, then it's work. When it's for the divine, whether it's the divine in the form that is worshipped in a temple or ashram, or it's the divine in the form of my children, or my spouse, or my in-laws, my neighbors, my community. If I'm doing it for the divine, then it's seva. And even though you're in a family, that doesn't mean that your vision has to be stuck with the family. So yes, you may have 2 children or 3 children who have come out of you personally. But that doesn't mean that your vision has to be so narrow that it only thinks about 2 or 3 children. As you walk down the street, can you see the children on the street as your children, even though they didn't come out of your womb? Okay, you may not take them home, put them to bed, but at least in your heart, can you see them like that? Can you let those borders and boundaries of separation dissolve? Can you do something for them? Can you understand they are also part of your family? And the last part is that a marriage itself can be a very, very deep and powerful way of walking the path to God. It's not that I'm married in spite of my spiritual progress or my spiritual path, that I have my marriage time and then I have my spiritual time. But how can my marriage actually be the vehicle for my spiritual path? Because a marriage is very challenging. Any relationship is. But usually in most relationships you get to say, okay, forget it, I'm going home. In a marriage, there's no place to go. You can't even say, I'm going in my room. Sometimes in some big homes, they've got separate closets. So the best you can do is, I'm going in my closet. But the whole path is shared. And so when you are literally interlocked with someone on a path, can you use that path of discovery of the self, surrender, sacrifice, not for another one single being. You're not surrendering for your husband or for your in-law. You're surrendering for peace. That's what you're surrendering to. You're surrendering to peace. You're surrendering to spiritual growth. That stubbornness is what stands between you and peace. Stands between you and spiritual growth. So it's not, I've given in to my husband or my wife or my in-law or my child. It's, I've given in to peace. I've chosen peace. I've chosen spiritual growth in this moment, instead of getting the fridge arranged the way I like it, or the dishwasher loaded the way I like it. There may be a right way to load a dishwasher, but more important than that, there's a right way to peace. And finding that right way of literally seeing the divine in this being, such that through your time together, you're able to connect with God. Not that everything they do is perfect, but through the soul, the spirit, the soul connection, that you're able to connect with the divine. So use it as your spiritual practice, rather than thinking, oh, if I were just, a sadhvi in an ashram instead. The day may come, but you're young. You've got a lot of time left. So don't think about it like that yet. For now, let this path be your path. I'll tell you last in closing a beautiful story. BKS Iyengar. So the Iyengar tradition of yoga, which is the tradition that I studied even before coming to India, it's the tradition that my mother studies and is a teacher of, and is a very, very practice-based tradition in terms of the amount of practice required. And so typical students of Iyengar yoga will practice an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. It's not a 15-minute sun salutations and you're done type of practice. So one time there was a question and answer with Iyengarji. And my yoga teacher was in that question and answer. And so he came back and he reported on it. And he said, there was a woman in the group who asked Iyengarji, I used to practice so many hours a day and I had such a great yoga practice. And now I've given birth. I have this baby and I don't have any time to do my yoga. And Iyengarji said to her, now that baby is your yoga practice. And I love that story. It's a story from more than 20 years ago, before I came to India even. But I love that story. Because, you may still need to do some asanas and loosen up the back and the shoulders and the hips from carrying a baby on your hip all day long or whatnot. But your real yoga, the fullness of your yoga, your spiritual practice, now is being a mother. And that's no less of a yoga than spending 2-3 hours a day doing asanas. And that from the mouth of the father of so much of today, what's being taught as yogasana. So let your marriage and your family be your yoga. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.